So S.T.O.P began in 2019 when I had been working for several years as a civil rights lawyer prior to that in corporate law. And I saw that even though we had had this sort of logjam at the national level when it came to surveillance, that we had seen exponential growth in state and local surveillance technologies, that they were fundamentally reshaping the powers of the police and the relationship between the government and the governed. And so I started S.T.O.P with the desire to try to systematically dismantle the local surveillance apparatus here in New York City as a way to show proof of concept for a broader model of dismantling local surveillance all across the United States and then generally more globally. Discriminatory surveillance is any type of mass data collection or mass data analysis that, puts a historically marginalized community at risk of harm. The most obvious examples are facial recognition, a system where you have documented patterns of individuals of color, women, LGBT individuals, all being at higher risk of a false positive. That means that in the case of law enforcement use of facial recognition, a heightened risk of false arrest. We say at the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project, if the people are asked to choose between safety and our values, no matter how much we treasure those values like civil rights and equality, oftentimes we'll just go with safety. But what we focus on are those tools where it's a win-win, where it's tools which are costing us money, which are eroding our privacy, which are undermining civil rights, and at the same time are failing to actually keep us safe. These tools are putting people in harm's way, putting them at risk of false arrest, and really need to be dismantled. I would love to see a facial recognition ban for all government use of facial recognition across the United States. We've been pushing this here in New York City for quite some time. We continue to push it both at the city and state level. And this is something that is long overdue because this is the most controversial and well-documented surveillance technology we have. This is the one where we have study after study documenting the bias. We have study after study showing the ways that the systems can fail. So AI creates a lot of multiplier effects when it comes to surveillance. So when you have a CCTV camera, it takes a human being staring at it for hours just to get through a day's worth of footage. When you are talking about AI, suddenly you have the ability to have hundreds of cameras scanned in real time. It means that automated license plate readers can create a real-time map of where people are across the city when they're driving. It means the ability to analyze geolocation data, and it also means a layer of predictive analytics on top of the mere aggregation of location data. There's all of the analytics which can then extrapolate from our movements, from our patterns, from our decisions. Is this person a threat? And that's such a powerful decision to make. And when the tools get it wrong, which they almost inevitably do, we see the same over police communities being the ones that suffer time and again. By limiting the amount that we are tracked on our phones, by keeping our phones off when we're not using them, putting them in airplane mode, maybe even putting them in a Faraday cage. There are all these ways you can limit the way that your phone is being tracked. Similarly, you can limit the ways that your face is tracked through facial recognition by wearing a mask, wearing another sort of face covering. Obviously, we should all be doing this during the pandemic as a way to preserve our health, but it can also be a way to preserve our privacy. That said, none of these systems are foolproof, and it shouldn't come down to individuals to protect ourselves against this sort of invasive spying, because that's always going to be an outcome that privileges those of us with the time and resources to invest in these protections, while those who are just trying to make rent, who are just trying to get by, who are desperately trying to make out a living and don't have the time to spend hours evaluating their cybersecurity risk and their privacy risk, they're the ones who are going to suffer most, and they're the ones that need the protection. the most. And that's why, on top of any steps we take to protect our own privacy, we have to protect our communities by passing new legal requirements, by taking steps to dismantle these police surveillance systems, and by also pressuring corporations to stop the models that enable this type of rampant government dragnets.